Hi team, so yesterday we did notes 7a and we looked for a GCF. We factored with the difference of squares, so like if you saw x squared minus 16, it turned into x plus 4, x minus 4. We learned the Ombre formula, so a, b, a squared, a, b, b squared. And then that's with SOAP, right? Same, opposite, always positive. We looked at quadratic form when you have like x to the fourth x and then a number. And then we looked at factoring by grouping when there's 4 pieces and you split them into 2 like that. You're going to extend your notes today so that you can continue working. So note 7b, you're going to factor each of the polynomials functions whose equations and graphs are provided. So we're going to factor this to start. So first, I'm going to look for my GCF. GCF is 3 and x, which leaves x squared plus 4x plus 4. I see that this section in here is a trinomial, so I'm going to use the x factor, 4 and 4, 2 and 2. So this would be 3x, x plus 2, and x plus 2. So that is fully factored. So then I'm going to take a look at the graph, and I can see, if you remember, this would be like 3x equals 0, or just x equals 0, divide by 3 on both sides. This would be x plus 2 equals 0, subtract 2 on both sides, x equals negative 2. And then same thing here, x plus 2 equals 0, which would be x equals negative 2. I see that it comes up twice, so it's literally called a double root. And if you remember that at negative 2, I'll see that double root, it's going to bounce, right? It bounces, it doesn't go through. That's different than where x equals 0. That would be where it goes through like this. So those are my 2 solutions. One's a double root. And then the question of the day is, what is the y-intercept of the graph? And I can see that the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. It's going to cross right here. That's my y-intercept, so I'm at 0. And then the constant term, the word constant term, constant just means the number without a variable on it. So if I'm looking at this, I have a variable, I have a variable, I have a variable, and there's no number without a variable, so the number that I would have there is 0, because this would be like plus 0. That would be the constant term. So for example, in the next one, when we see plus 4, that's the constant term of this one. So I'm going to take a look at this one. I need to factor it. I see that it's in quadratic format. I have the x to the fourth, the x squared, and then a number. So I'm going to factor it with 4 and negative 5. What numbers multiply and add? I think that it's negative 4 and negative 1, which would mean that I have here negative 4 and negative 1. I know that it's x to the fourth, so that would be x squared and x squared. If you need to use the box, you can multiply those back out. So then I know this is the difference of squares, so x plus 2, x minus 2, and then x plus 1, x minus 1. So I know the solutions I would get out of here are negative 2, positive 2, negative 1, positive 1. And I can see those 3 on the graph. I see negative 2, positive 2, negative 1, positive 1. And this asks what's the y-intercept of the graph. So I'm looking at the y-axis. I see that there's a y-intercept right here, and it's at 4. So I have 4 right there. So I remember that the constant term in the equation is the last number if it's written in standard form. And I see the 4. So then this one, I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, an even number of terms. There's nothing I can take out, so I'm going to factor by grouping. So this would be x squared is in common. I have 2x plus 5 left over. And then these have a negative in common, so I'm going to call that negative 1. And that would leave me with 2x plus 5. Remember, that means that I have these in common. That's technically my GCF. So 2x plus 5 is being factored. And then what's left over is x squared minus 1. I see that that's the difference of squares, x plus 1, x minus 1, leaving the 2x plus 5 here. Pretty easy to find my solutions. This would be negative 1. This is positive 1. And then this one, if you have a hard time doing that in your head, you could just say, okay, I know it's 2x plus 5 equals 0, minus 5 minus 5, 2x equals negative 5, divide by 2, get x equals negative 5 halves, or negative 2.5. So those are my 3 solutions, which is good because remember I have x to the third. So I'm going to look at my graph. I see negative 2.5. Cool, that's a good point right there. I see negative 1, and I see 1. So I see my solutions. And then it's asking what's the y-intercept of the graph. The y-intercept is negative 5. And I look at the constant term, and I see negative 5 is my constant term. And then it says, what connection do you see between the equations and the graphs? All right, so there are 2 things that you should be able to see. One is regarding the solutions, and one is regarding the y-intercept. Go ahead and make those connections here. And then that is your notes for today. So you're going to go ahead for your work today. You're going to check your answers from yesterday. Check from yesterday. And, excuse me. And then especially check that on number 9 through 18 that you did solutions, right? They're asking for solutions there. They're not asking for the factored form. So they want x equals a number. They do not, I mean, this is good. You need to do the factored form, but they don't want it. That's not the answer. You would want to have your answer here. And then number 3, after you're done with that, you're going to work on numbers 19 through 23 on yesterday's homework. If you are finished early, then you are thinking about retakes. I've emailed them to you. Or you're thinking about missing work, anything that you've got. Otherwise, you're welcome to work on another class. Cool. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.